you found the skeleton, how would you tell it was a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, welcome to Matt with Maddie. What is it? 14, 15, 16? I don't even know. 16, there it is.
One of those.
It's one of the numbers. I knew it wasn't into the 20s yet. This is Close Encounters of the Third Matt because we do in fact have a third Matt. Today, we are taking a look at Matt McClain, but also we have a baby on screen. Hi, baby.
See, Hannah says hello to everyone.
Hello.
Ugh.
Also, Alia Jane, right before we went live, joined the channel at the Sarabsa level, and I see that a whole bunch of people have already sent the tetrapod emoji, as is proper, although most of you also sent pelagic tunicates, as is improper. Because as we all know, pelagic tunicates are trash. The worst animals.
Say the worst, Hannah. Say the worst.
So, we're taking a look today at Matthew McClain. Now, we started his video at the end of the last time, and his video is basically how the fossil record does not support evolution, according to him. Which is weird, because it is one of the reasons that people I had the idea that maybe evolution was a thing. Because one of the things you gotta remember is faunal succession, which is a feature of the fossil record, where, like, which organisms live when changes over significantly throughout the geological record, was one of the things that first alerted people to, like, hey, we can't explain, like, natural history with, like, ideas of stasis of living things. Like, that's just not going to work. Something is changing throughout the geological record. We have to account for that. And so there were a number of attempts to account for that, including progressive creation, as well as various ideas about evolution, like Lamarckian evolution and Darwin and whatnot. Is a creationist Matt suitable for babies? I
Don't
feel like,
worry.
yeah.
I have headphones in. She can't hear.
She's insulated from all the dumb.
Yeah, she's very focused on this octopus toy, who I have named Oscar.
Ah, I wonder what she'll call it.
I don't know.
'Cause
right now, all we're getting is kind of like we're pronouncing consonants.
Oh.
Not just vowels.
Well, I got spoilers for you, because babies do not keep the names for stuffed animals that you give the stuffed animals.
Oh, I just name all of her toys alliteratively. So this is Oscar the octopus. We have Sylvester the sloth.
Okay.
Yeah.
That might work.
You can name it whatever you like, baby. So yes, I'm sorry if I default to my, like, talk to my baby voice. But she needed some snuggles.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do have a third Matt, and that is because we were going back and forth between Raw Matt and Matt Powell for months, over a year.
And listen, it was very painful.
Oh, yeah, it was...
It was so bad.
I felt like I couldn't take another Raw Matt video again. Mm-hmm. I needed a break. So we're doing Matt McClain. Now, Matt McClain is a paleontologist. He is, I would say, actually, of the young Earth paleontologists who exist, of which, you know, there's like 4 or 5 or something. I mean, don't quote me on that, but there's not many. He's one of the less wrong ones, I'll say. Matt McClain knows that birds are dinosaurs and that there were non-bird dinosaurs that had feathers. He's not too dumb for that one. He actually recently had a hit piece put out about him by Answers in Genesis because of that fact.
Ooh.
Yeah, they don't like that. So yeah, now he's telling us about, like, the conventional, if you will, which just means scientific, idea about the tree of life based on the fossil record, as well as, you know, morphology and genetics and whatnot. But before we get into that, we're going to describe the drinking rules, because we have some drinks. I have some vodka and cola, and you have gin and cranberry Sprite?
Yeah, gin and cranberry Sprite. It's very good, but you can only find cranberry Sprite at Christmas. So I have, like, 2 cans left.
What you got to do is just, like, next Christmas, buy all of them.
Fair.
Just have, like,
That's
a year's supply.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that can be, like, you save up all year. Like, this is my cranberry Sprite budget, and it goes into a separate account. And then once it becomes available, suddenly you dump all that back into checking and then just go wild with the cranberry Sprite.
Exactly, right? This is for cranberry Sprite and Girl Scout cookies.
There you go. All right, so we're going to talk about the drinking rules, because this is a bit of a drinking game. But first of all, Savage Cobra Official, thank you very much for letting us know that you're the official Savage Cobra, has said, AIG is 2 firkins of gherkins in a 1 firkin bag, and I'm pretty sure I know what we're getting at here, so we'll take a drink for that.
Hold on, Hannah.
So that's one of the drinking rules, actually. If you can super chat anything to the effect that AIG is a bag of dicks, we'll take a drink. That is primarily because, a while back now at this point, but they were gigantic copyright abusers who would claim everything, including videos of theirs that other people were using when the video that they themselves made, contained fair use of other works. So they were using fair use. And we're talking like things like Hollywood or like BBC documentaries would just be in their video. And so like, yeah, they're like, oh yeah, fair use here. But you try to critique them, oh, no. That's not fair use. That's not okay. So yeah, they are a bag of dicks, which is also why, as DM Wing has helpfully pointed out, we have an AIG bag full of eggplants as an emoji. Because, yeah. Which, by the way, guys, if you're trying to get me to the next emoji, it'll be a while. I think we still need, like, 30-something people for another emoji, so probably not going to happen too soon. So yeah, that's one of the drinking rules. That's the one that was already triggered. Oh, also, Too Young to Feel This Old has just gifted 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, which went to Soulcat. Thank you very much, Too Young to Feel This Old, and congratulations, Soulcat. Take your Tetrapod emojis, and we'll take a drink. Because that's another rule. We will take a drink for every membership gifted. And yeah, that's one of the rules. But also, we have a rule that anyone who super chats or does a membership milestone with any of the Godzilla emojis, so it's Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, we'll take a drink for that. Also, occasionally, Mothra or Godzilla might come through audibly. That's a sort of semi-random one, we take a drink. Now, there's also ones to do with the creationist in question. Now, whenever the creationist says something that's too stupid, we just kind of have to drink, we take a drink. Anytime that they get something factually correct, but that they're not just quoting, they actually have to use their own mind to come up with this. And there's Godzilla, we'll take a drink for that. Yeah, anytime they use their own mind to come up with correct information, we take a drink. Now, normally that's our least frequent drink, but, you know, Matt McLean is better than most of the other Young Earth creationists we cover. He's, like, several notches above Raw Matter Mott Powell. So I think we might actually have a fair few that's true take a drink moments. We also take a drink anytime the creationist tells a story that didn't happen, tells a joke that didn't land, references the National Socialist German Workers' Party or, you know, prominent members thereof, or, you know, the, I was going to say hijinks, but that's not an appropriate word to describe their various activities over the history of the party. But yeah, their various activities. So basically, whenever the creationists go sort of Godwin's Law, Alicia Windegards, who's been a member for 1 month at the Tetrapod level, says, like this, except you didn't include the emojis. By the way, I do know that the emojis are sometimes hard to use on platforms other than computer. So like if you're on Android or what is it? iPhone? Sorry, there it is, yep. If you're on one of those, you can just type in the thing in like parentheses or brackets or between colons or something, and I'll get it. I also know that they're super hard to use if you're trying to use like accessibility options for people who are visually impaired. They're also like a nightmare for that. So we're kind of loose with the emojis thing. We also will take a drink if one of us predicts what the creationist is about to say, and we get it right. We will also take a drink. Let's see, I'm forgetting. But also we have a couple chats. DM Wing, who's been a member for 8 months and is at the annual level, says membership benefits, and puts in a Godzilla and a Mothra, which means we take a drink for that. Also,
my husband now is putting Hannah to bed, so I will feel less bad about consuming Jen.
Also, they fixed emojis on Android, at least mine. Well, that's good, DM Wing. I'm actually really happy about that. Also, according to YouTube, you can now buy memberships for people from Android. So if you're using Android to watch this and you want to buy memberships for other people as gifts, apparently that's a thing now. Erachamian said, would you rather battle 1 AIG-sized pelagic tunicate or 1,000 pelagic tunicate-sized AIGs? Oh, 1 AIG-sized pelagic tunicate. I mean, they're basically... Oh, sorry.
What's a pelagic tunicate?
A pelagic tunicate is a chordate that is not a vertebrate, but it swims around in the ocean like some kind of a jerk with jet propulsion, just filter feeding like food out of the middle of the water column instead of sitting on the bottom, attached to the substrate like a good God-fearing tunicate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what a pelagic tunicate is. But also, since they're basically made out of like a little bit of cellulose and then just jelly, I could probably take one very easily, no matter how big it is.
But wouldn't it be fun to, in Minecraft, punch a lot of AIG worms?
Probably, but these aren't worms. These are tunicates.
Wouldn't it be fun in Minecraft to punch a lot of AIG tunicates?
Possibly. Look.
They don't even have bones, so I won't hurt my knuckles.
That's true. Look,
They'll just go squish.
There are people in the creationist community whom, if I encounter them in Minecraft, I would probably punch them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not most of the AIG staff.
But it's not talking about. It's talking about the entity AIG.
Oh, yeah, okay. That might be fun, yeah.
Right?
All right, yeah, maybe. It's hard to say.
I don't know if you guys can hear Hannah screaming in the background, but poor thing is very tired.
Now, we got a gift membership from DM Wing, which went to Skeletor over 9,000. And also, we got we'll take a drink for that, I forgot to... Okay. Also, Severino, who's been a member for 4 months at the tetrapod level, says, pelagic tunicates are coming for you, Dapper. But then, there's also a Mothra emoji, so we take a drink. Also, here's a fun thing from Egyptian hieroglyphics. If you have an ideograph sign, which means a sign that actually just stands for a word, and then you repeat the sign 3 times, it just pluralizes the concept.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's fun.
So, like, there's a word, oped, which just means bird, and the symbol for it is a bird, right? If you put 3 of them in a row, it just means birds.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I think of like multiple like emojis. So like if I get like 3 Godzillas in a row, I'm like Godzillas plural.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's dive into Matt McLean.
Okay.
Because
for those that might be new here, hi, I'm Maddie.
I didn't introduce. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I'm here a lot. I just wanted to reiterate. So like this guy's a paleontologist, and I'm not that. If you guys have ever heard me talk, I'm bad at the biologies, at the squishy science. I actually am getting my PhD in atmospheric science right now. My bachelor's is in math and geophysics. And I spent a good number of years teaching nuclear physics. So I have this like really broad background in the physical sciences. So you guys will have to not forgive me because I don't feel bad about like asking questions, but I might have to ask a lot of questions about the animals tonight.
Which is absolutely fine. Now, a couple things. One, Royland Hutchins, who's been a member for 10 months and is at the tetrapod level, sends Godzilla, Mothra, Get Bent, Kent, and AIG is a bag of dicks. All with emojis, which is really great. Also, the NBeat asks, why not just 2? Presumably in reference to the ancient Egyptian thing. There's actually a good reason for that. Because ancient Egyptian, at least at some point, along with many Afroasiatic languages, had a dual number. So there was a special form of the word for if there were just 2 of something. Now, over history, the use of that became more and more restricted. But that's why you have 3 to indicate we're not talking dual, we're talking plural.
So what's cool is isn't there a like mostly uncontacted, not completely uncontacted, but very remote Amazon tribe who they don't have words for numbers. They just have a concept of like 1, 2, and many.
So there's the Piraha who are said not to have any concept of numbers and have numbers that mean small amount or large amount, which tends to...
Oh, okay.
And how they describe collections of objects actually depends on what those objects are. So some objects, that are very common, they might use the word for a few for much larger amounts than they would for rare objects.
I see. Okay, that's very cool.
However, warning, a lot of the stuff that you read about Piraha that is the most sensational has been heavily contested in the literature. So, like, take Piraha news at like with a big old teaspoon of salt, right? Because like, Also, My Unfinished Journey for $2 says AIG is a ginormous jug of Jiggly Johnsons. That is the kind of alliteration I like to see. All right, let's have Matt tell us stupid stuff about the fossil record.
Let's do it.
And support for this idea comes from the fossil record.
That idea is just the tree of life, basically.
Yeah.
When you look at the fossil record, what you see is at the base of the fossil record, you find
Also, hit like. Not very many of you have hit like.
invertebrate organisms, animals without backbones, animals that seem more simple to us. And as you make your way up, you find fish and then amphibians and eventually your mammals and people.
All right, so I want to take a look at this. We've got a lot of things listed. First animals is listed as the early Cambrian. That is extremely wrong. So the first animals are probably in the Cryogenian, which is so far back that it's not on this chart. So the Cryogenian is the period before basically the Ediacaran, and it's called that because it's associated with basically global scale glacial deposits. The way that we know them is because these are glacial deposits because they have these glacial tills. So when glaciers roll across the landscape, right, they're very good at eroding things. They pick up, in some cases, fairly big boulders, and they can carry them for thousands of miles, depending on how long the glacier is. And then they just drop them. So in glacial deposits, you'll get these drop stones of, like, foreign origin. Like, they're clearly not the same composition as the other sediment in the area. And they're just gigantic, and they're all over the place. Now, there are a lot of places in North America where you can see a lot of these, especially in places where, like, the greatest extent of the glaciers from the last glacial maximum stopped, like where that edge was, you'll see a lot of them. So places like this, one place is New England. New England is full of gigantic boulders from, like, northern Canada, just all over the place. And that's why. Also, we have a membership milestone. Tiktaalik, who's been a member for 10 months and is at the amniote level, says, in Gravity Falls, there we go, Grunkle's stand has a jug of one-eyed monsters. Was that AIG? I'm not sure, but probably. So anyway, during the Cryogenian, we have chemical evidence of animals in the form of cholesterol. Or, yeah. What am I saying? I can't say it right. Why can't I say words right today?
I don't know, man. When did you start drinking?
Like when we had our first drink. I'm only 9 drinks in.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so we have chemical evidence of life. The first fossils of animals are probable sponges from, like, a few 100 million years later. So, like, but yeah, cholesterol, yeah, so we have chemical evidence of cholesterol. Basically, cholesterol is one of those things that, like, doesn't rot all that fast. It can stick around for a very, very long time if it's well protected, which being inside rocks does do. So yeah, we have evidence of the first animals way before this. Now, first fish is basically an undefined term. So it could mean a bunch of things. First amphibians, again, it depends. Do you mean by amphibians, like, non-reptiliomorph tetrapods? Because then maybe, do you mean lissamphibians, the actual group to which modern amphibians belong? Then no, probably not. It's probably a bit higher up. First dinosaurs and pterosaurs towards the late Triassic, fairly accurate. Mammals, not quite. We don't really get crown mammals until the Jurassic, but we do get stem mammals that if you looked at them, you'd probably just say it's a mammal. Might be a weird mammal, but, like, if you look at it, it's furry, got a little rat tail or something. Maybe it has little sticky outy ears. It has milk, but it's probably still laying eggs. We get that kind of thing out in the Triassic, but, like, until the Jurassic, we don't really get crown mammals. First flowering plants in the Cretaceous, that's fine. First horses in the Paleogene, fine. First humans in the Quaternary, yeah, of course, what it counts as a human is always contentious, but yeah. Anyway, just wanted to point out there are a few problems with this, but overall, it's not the worst chart.
The very top. And that is what you see in the fossil record, and they say, see, that is support for this idea of an evolution of all life from simple to complex.
Kind
I like that
of.
phrasing.
Yeah.
Because
Go Go ahead.
It implies a goal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
So it implies that evolution is there's somehow intent to become more complex.
Yes.
And evolution also doesn't necessitate complex organisms, because if you had a simple organism that was incredibly successful, right, at surviving in its environment, and that environment didn't change, then that organism wouldn't change. Like,
Yeah.
so there's no, the only pressure to become more complex is the changing environment. But that's sort of the, like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I view that as like, that's how it just so happened to occur here on Earth, not
Yeah. Well,
not like how it would have to happen in every single environment everywhere.
exactly. And in fact, we actually have examples of organisms either not becoming significantly more complex since like the Cambrian, or even becoming simpler. So for instance, flatworms have probably not really changed significantly since the Cambrian. They don't need to. They're doing just fine as flatworms, going around, not having real eyes, not really having much of a body cavity, trying to stab each other with their penises. You know, normal flatworm stuff.
I guess it is true that like if a complex trait exists, then it took a long time to develop.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Right. And that would, you have to really specifically define what we mean by complex trait. But if we're thinking like the human eye, it wouldn't, like, the time it would take to develop something as complex as the human eye, right? You're not going to get that at the same time you're getting the first single-celled organism with a nucleus.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
no, that's billions of years apart.
Right, exactly. Like if we're thinking about, like, in order to have an eye, what else do I have to have? And think about a time scale to get that. But like if for a specific definition of complex, like if you have something that is complex, you can assume that did not happen immediately, right? But yeah, sorry, that phrasing is kind of like leaning into a confusion about how most people think about evolution. That it's like directed, that it's intentional, that the way things are supposed to be, that there's some sort of supposed to inside of evolution, and there just isn't.
I want to say, Professor Freya pointed out that in and around Calgary, we have a number of glacial erratics. Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. This is another place where, like, that's sort of the southern extent of various glaciers is around, like, Calgary, into New England, lots of southern Canada, northern U.S. type places. Also, I want to point out that there's a significant group of animals that have become radically simplified, called the Mixozoans. For a long time,
what are Mixozoans?
Yeah, that's a great question. For a long time, people just thought that they were some single-celled paramecium relative. But then their genome was sequenced. They're jellyfish.
Oh, cool.
They're like up to like a dozen or so celled animals that are jellyfish, and they're so radically simplified that some species don't have mitochondria.
Oh, that's cool. So they were their evolutionary history there is that they were more complex, but then it became they had a survival benefit of becoming less complex.
Because they became obligate endoparasites on fish.
Cool.
And when all you do is live inside of a fish blood vessel, absorbing chemicals passively from the blood that passes by, you don't even need mitochondria, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Why bother? Just extra work. Yeah. Savage Cobra official for $2 says AIG is a wicked wad of willies within a weekender. Very nice. I like it. I'm really appreciating all the alliteration that people are putting into these.
Extra points for W alliteration. Part of that just hits my soul the right way. It sounds so lovely.
Not the easiest letter to alliterate with.
True.
Okay.
But that's like the witches in Macbeth, right? The something wicked this way comes. You know, it's in there, and it feels creepy in a way that appeals to me.
I gotta find out if we can get Macbeth in the original Klingon, and if not, I gotta talk to the various Klingon translators and ask why not.
Mhm.
because it's a great.
Then, there we go. Hey, Dapper, I'm going to make you a channel milestone goal.
Okay.
Right? Dramatic reading of Macbeth in Klingon.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to sit and translate it. We could probably do Hamlet.
Okay. Well, what if we just did the parts of Macbeth that are dick jokes?
Maybe we could do that.
Or just the witches, because I do
just
love
the
Me the Witches.
Okay. I mean, that's just like the opening scene.
No, they show up several times.
They do
as,
show up
like,
several times,
people
yeah,
who
that's
move
true.
the plot.
Yeah.
And listen, I wrote a whole paper on this in college about the Shakespeare using a narrative device of people who speak in couplets, right, are primarily the witches, but there's a shift. In the first half of Hamlet, Lady Macbeth speaks in couplets. In the second half, Macbeth speaks in couplets, right? It's this weird like trade-off for like who is, in my opinion, right, who is sort of who has control, right, or who is actively making choices. Yeah.
Interesting. Carrie Bronson for $10 says Mixozoan sounds like the name of a bar behind a biology laboratory. They probably have a bunch of glasses shaped like beakers and specials named by their species name. I would go to that bar.
Dude, I'd go to that bar.
That sounds
I like
so much
drinking
fun.
with nerds.
Yeah.
They don't look at me weird when I like rant about math for 45 minutes when I get a little tipsy.
Exactly. All right, we're going to hit play. Oh, speaking of milestones, though, 10,000 subscribers and 1 million views are both coming up.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so we're going to have milestone specials coming up here. I think we are about 70,000 views away from 1 million, which is probably like a month or two. And we are 523 away from 10,000 subscribers.
Brilliant.
So, anyway, here we go.
Now, what I want to talk to you about is the process of naturalistic evolution. How does it work?
Oh.
Look at that line, just in the middle there. All right.
That's a weird line, but I like that the axes are labeled, although...
Yeah, I think I'm going to forgive him the line because I think he probably messed up or his like transitions in PowerPoint. He got
probably.
that one.
That's probably actually part of the real graph. It's just on there at the wrong time.
Exactly. Yeah, I've done that in PowerPoint so many times. I can't get mad for that.
Yeah, and this is just an illustration, so I'll forgive the lack of units.
Yeah.
Time and diversity. Those are our axes. Here's what you have. You have an ancestral organism, and over time, that population gets split up and they get a little bit more different. And then as more time passes, they get more different.
Yeah, that's where that line's supposed to be. Okay, that's fair. Look,
So
PowerPoint's
that's fair.
weird.
Like that's a fair description, but it is not time in and of itself that causes those branches, right? It's selection pressure. Because, you know what I mean? Like, you need time for these things to occur, but time is not the thing that causes them to occur.
That's true, yeah. But
And
maybe,
I don't know, even if I
maybe
was
he'll get
teaching,
into
like,
it.
maybe. Okay, let's see.
Now that floating branch is joined in there.
Yay.
And as they get even more different over time, you eventually end up with a full tree of different organisms. Okay, so that's Darwinian evolution. That's what Darwin was thinking about.
But it's also what you're thinking about with archetypes. Let's not forget that, right? This is not unique to evolution. Oh, drink for Godzilla.
Cheers. Again.
Oh, twice. Okay.
Even if I was teaching this to like middle schoolers, right? And like I'm not a biologist, right? But I would really want them to grasp this idea of what is the actual cause, you know? Because if the Earth's environment did not change for 4 billion years, then humans would not exist. Like,
like I said, he's early on in this. Let's get him. Maybe he'll explain.
When he wrote Origin of the Species, in fact, the only figure in his entire book is a tree that
It's not in the book as far as I remember. It's in his notes, which, okay, whatever.
he drew, an evolutionary tree. And the idea here is that diversity precedes disparity. Now, I'm using some words you may be unfamiliar with there. Let me explain what I mean. Little changes over a very long period of time end up with big changes. That's the idea in naturalistic evolution. Let me give you an example. This is a fake example. This is not real, okay? Nobody believes this. There are 2 leopards up there. The cloud.
I'll move that over a little bit so that people can see it. Oh, that's the wrong thing. There we go. Yeah, we'll extend out the side. I want to make sure that people can see his leopards because, you know, they're cute kitties.
They're very cute kitties.
Okay, that's good enough.
Clouded leopard up on top and the snow leopard. You can obviously tell the difference between these species, but they're obviously very similar animals, right? We both call them leopards, right? And
I mean, that term in common use is not actually a monophyletic group, but like if we widen it up to like Felidae, then sure.
they look like cats. They're just big cats.
Oh, that's exactly what he did. Okay,
They're very similar. Well, the idea here would be that over time...
Actually, I think the clouded leopard might actually be a small cat. I'm not positive, though.
The descendants of these leopards will get more and more and more different from each other to the point that you could get something like a zebra mussel at the end, right? Now,
I mean, that's an obvious straw man, but I think he's already said that, so like, I don't like that you're going with an obvious straw man, but okay.
like I said, nobody believes that. No.
And again, he's missing a major point, which is it is not time. It is the fact that these leopards live in different environments.
Right. Yeah, it's very easy to infer from what he's saying that it's the time that's the causative agent. I don't know if he's stating that.
Yeah, I guess I'm nitpicking on it because I'm thinking about this from a science communication standpoint, right? Of like we're specifically his audience is specifically experts, right? He's not talking to people that you can assume have this knowledge, right? And so if the purpose of this is to teach them about, even if it's to teach them about a theory that he does not think is true, then he should honestly and correctly represent the theory, right? If I was trying to explain a process of sea ice, right, like which is what my PhD is in, you know, like for my master's thesis, I showed that like the atmosphere tends to look like this when this type of sea ice loss event occurs. And the question I always get is, okay, cool, like what is that cause, right? And I can't, you know, it's like, oh, but this pressure gradient exists, right? It's the pressure gradient that's the cause. It's like, well, how does a pressure gradient affect sea ice, right? Like it's not, the pressure gradient has to be present. It's a necessary ingredient, but it's not the thing that affects the sea ice. So like thinking as a scientist here, right? It to me that like if this was being presented to me as like a seminar, I was a student giving, right? Or a colleague giving critique, I would harp on that issue because it's not correctly represented.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Also, I have double-checked as well as, I believe the NBead pointed out, that, yeah, they are both big cats. They're both in Pantherinae, which is the subfamily of the big cats. Dark Law Dragon, for $2, sent a Godzilla, a Mothra, and a Ghidorah, as well as an AIG or a bag of dicks, but that is one drink.
Cheers.
We limit it to one drink a message, except for membership gifts, because, I mean, you guys would try to kill me if you could.
No one thinks that zebra mussels evolved from cats. But I'm just giving you the example of this is a very, very different animal at the bottom than the animals that we saw up there at the top.
Yeah, but it doesn't maintain the plesiomorphies from earlier times, right? So you can't get that. So one of the things that this bugs me with, right, is within the branching, what you end up getting is variations on the themes provided by your ancestry, right? So you're not going to get from a cat to a zebra mussel. Even if you got a sessile aquatic filter feeding cat, it wouldn't look like a zebra mussel. It would still be identifiably a cat in some ways. And so that's one of the things that bugs me a little bit here is that he's intentionally obscuring that important fact about the patterns that we see in the fossil record and in evolution generally.
And I guess on that point, like the insistence that it, like not mentioning that it's environmental factors forcing these changes, right? Like this example doesn't give anybody a grounding in what the theory actually is, right? Because a better example, if we were going to use the 2 leopard example and talking to, you know, and talking to, again, like middle schoolers, I would start with 1 leopard, right? And say, now what would happen if we put if we took these leopards and one species started moving north and the other species started moving south,
Yeah.
how do you think that might change the leopard? Or one moved to a region with trees and the other moved to a region with lots of water, right? How might they change, you know? And that would be, I think, a better sort of like toy example, you know, not a real process, but a better like silly example to get at the heart of the thing.
Ghost Dog 999, who's been a member for 9 months, says there's a lot of half-truth from Matt Pelagic Tunicate. I don't think it's his name, but it might be.
Yeah.
Start out very different and they end up in very different places. So what we want to ask is, does the fossil record support this thinking?
Yes, in the broad sense. No, in the sense that leopards could turn into mussels.
Does this actually come out of what we see in the fossils?
That's part of the things that annoys me is the fossil record is basically the reason that this idea came up in the first place. Yes, it is.
Also, so yes. Okay, well let's just see because I feel like he's trying to set up a, and so I'm wary,
Okay.
right?
Well, what we're going to do, we're going to make our way up the geologic column, up the fossil record, to see if the record matches the predictions we see from naturalistic evolution.
Ooh.
And I'm going to hit 4 points. Each time you see a star there, that's where we're going to stop. I could do a lot more. We don't have the time to do that. We may not even have the time for these 4. We'll see what happens. Depends on how fast I can talk. It's where you wish you were from Boston, right? But we're going to start down here at the bottom and see, does this prediction hold up? The first place we're going to look is the Cambrian. And we're going to look at something called the Cambrian explosion. You may have heard of the Cambrian explosion before. This is the abrupt appearance of almost every phylum of animal in the lower Cambrian.
Oh, I can see what's coming. We're going to take a drink. I'm going to tell you what's coming up.
Yeah, I'm
All right.
trying to read the title of the paper he's citing. The Cambrian Conundrum, Early Divergence and Later Ecological Success in the Early History of Animals.
2011.
2011. So I don't, from that title, because that's not my field, I don't know what that's about. Like,
Yeah. I'm gonna talk about what I'm pretty darn sure is coming up here. So
okay, I'm gonna pull up that paper, so don't mind me if I type.
Okay. So what we're gonna get is that every phylum appears in the fossil record, and that's a whole bunch of diversity. Or sorry, a whole bunch of disparity. That's very, very different animals. Way before the increase in diversity, which is the opposite of what we should be getting based on what he already just said. Yeah, there's a big problem with that. The phyla are actually not all that disparate in the Cambrian. Like, if you looked at the earliest members of Arthropoda and the earliest members of Onychophora and the earliest members of Tardigrada in the Cambrian, you would probably put them in the same family, maybe the same order. And we can tell this. Like, you can look at Cambrian animals from what are now very distinct groups, right? Like, you can look at the earliest stem arachnids and the earliest stem mandibulates, which is like crustaceans and insects and whatnot. And the earliest ones in the Cambrian look almost identical. You couldn't tell them apart if you didn't know what you were looking for. And so this is just the point where basically speciation over 600 million years is going to be a phylum level event in the Cambrian. And he's just going to pretend that because right now the phyla are extremely distinct, that means that there was high diversity in the Cambrian, even though there was not anomalously high diversity in the Cambrian. That's where we're going.
By the way,
Mhm.
I pulled up that paper and I just read the abstract, and this Cambrian conundrum is the fact that basically there's a lag. There appears to be, based off of current data, right? A time delay between when some of these species like evolved certain traits and when those traits became really beneficial, right? So the Cambrian conundrum has nothing to do with like, and suddenly all the animals appeared.
I can't say I'm terribly shocked that that's not what it's about.
Yeah, so let me read the exact sentence really fast. Sorry. Okay, a compilation of the patterns of fossils and molecular diversification indicate that the major animal clades diverged many tens of millions of years before their first appearance in the fossil record, demonstrating a macroevolutionary lag between the establishment of their developmental toolkits during the cryogenian and the later ecological success of Metazoan during the Ediacaran. Ediacaran. So, like, the conundrum is this, again, if I'm reading that correctly, it's like I'm having to approach this as a layperson, biology and in paleontology. But it seems to be that, like, the conundrum is they developed the traits and then they became. But I'm paraphrasing something that's not my field, so take
No,
that with a grain
that
of salt.
sounds like what they're saying there. I mean, I don't have time to go
Yeah.
read the whole paper right now, but like that sounds like what we're getting at. And also, I think he's mostly just citing this paper for the cladogram that we're looking at.
Oh, okay, fair.
But he might also be going for much more than that. So
Let's find out.
Okay, what are we talking about? Well, you remember in biology class at some point when you're in grade school or middle school or high school or something, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus.
take a drink. And another one. Also, at one point, someone in the chat said that we're not letting Matt speak much. We're letting him speak a lot compared to how often we have to stop, like, Matt Powell, so.
Species. Do you remember that? It's kind of fun watching these TV screens when I talk because I'll be like this, and then I see it like happen later. It's really cool. So when you start really broad kingdom, right, all the animals are in one kingdom. Phylum is a little bit narrower. Then class, then family, order. Order, family, genus, species.
Yeah, he got it right. Take a drink. That's good job, Matt. Now, to be fair to Matt McLean, I mean, he's a PhD in paleontology. I would expect him to get that right. In fact, I believe even Kent Hovind gets that right. So, like, you know, but still, it's nice to hear actual, factually correct information. So.
Look at a biologist I am. And what I want to show you with this chart is something really, really interesting. Now, you look at this chart and you're like, that is nonsense. That's because it's in the journal Nature. And what you have to do...
I don't look at that chart and say that is nonsense. I know
Also,
exactly what that
it's in the journal
is.
Science, not Nature.
Yeah. But, like, there's nothing nonsensical about that. The only thing that's nonsense is that it's hard to read because it's so tiny. But I'm pretty sure the original image you could zoom in on. So, like... Also, it's got some really cool stuff in it.
I'll drop a link to that image in chat.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
In order to get a paper published in Nature.
This paper is open source.
Oh, good. So, yeah. I love open source papers.
Right.
Is combine all your figures somehow into one figure. And so that's what they did. It's just, you know, you look at that and it's like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Let me try and help you understand. Okay, along the bottom axis there, the horizontal, this laser pointer doesn't work up there, you see time, or the rock layers, whatever you want to think about. So on the far left on the horizontal is the far distant past, or
cryogenian, you can say it.
Really, really low rocks. And on the right is the present.
Not even going to say it. Okay, fine.
As you go up this thing, the vertical scale is your number of taxa. That could be families, genus, species, order, whatever. In this case, we're looking at classes and phyla. So remember, it goes kingdom, phylum. Phylum is the next biggest division in the order of organisms. So an example of a phylum would be something like Arthropoda, which is everything that has a jointed leg and an exoskeleton. So
yeah, hey, we'll take a drink for that. That is also accurate. That is what Arthropoda is. And that is a phylum level taxon, even though saying phylum level doesn't actually mean anything, because spoiler alerts, all the taxonomic levels are arbitrary. There's nothing that says that Arthropoda has to be a taxon rather than, say, Panarthropoda, which would put tardigrades and velvet worms in the arthropod taxon, or in the arthropod phylum. Or you could go lower and say that the two phyla are actually Chelicerata and Mandibulata, which are the two subphyla in Arthropoda. Those are also perfectly valid phyla. We just decided not to do that. Why? Literally no actual reason, other than that's what basically Linnaeus felt like.
Someone had to draw a line somewhere. That's how categorization ends up being every time.
Yep.
So, insects, arachnids, crustaceans, centipedes, millipedes, trilobites, all those animals, hundreds of thousands, millions of species are in the same phylum. Okay, so this is a really big group. Okay, now, where do phyla first appear in the fossil record?
Well, in the Cryogenian, because remember, we have evidence of poriferans, which is a phylum, that's sponges, way back in the Cryogenian. So that's where they first appear. Let's hear what Matt has to say, because I'll bet he doesn't say the Cryogenian, but maybe I'm wrong.
When you see blue up there, what you're seeing is the number of phyla at any given moment in time or moment in the rock record. What you might expect from an evolutionary opinion would be that your number of phyla would steadily increase through time.
No, I would not expect that. That's incredibly dumb.
Not at all.
Yeah, we're going to take a drink for that, because that is one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard from a paleontologist, or just anyone. So, remember how Matt correctly told us that over time, the difference between different organisms that have a common ancestor is going to increase, right? Also, for $5, Alia Jane says, Mothra, where can I acquire grifters with PhDs? Also, obligatory trans rights, absolutely. Basically, if you check places like Loma Linda University or Liberty University, and you check especially their life sciences or geology departments, there you go. Basically, any place that Ken Ham says is a good place to get a degree is a great place to get a grifter with a PhD. And also, because there's a Mothra, we take a drink because the Queen of Monsters is definitely a good reason to take a drink. Even if in Godzilla versus... what do they call it? I think it was Godzilla versus the Thing is what it was originally titled in the USA, even though it's Godzilla versus Mothra. They used like masculine pronouns for Mothra for like the one time only in the English dub. And I'm like, why is this? Mothra's always like laying eggs and like always referred to as like a queen, and like clearly has like a pseudo fertility cult associated with her on her island and whatnot. Like, no. And I get it. Japanese doesn't have gendered personal pronouns, so like technically it's not an inaccurate translation, but like Mothra is a feminine pronoun using monster. Been very well established over the years.
And I'm just going to reiterate trans rights.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, because things are getting more and more and more and more different. Instead, what you find...
Oh, right. I was about to talk about that. more and more different. So what that means is that, let's say you have, like, the first animal. Okay. And then it speciates. And we'll just say that both groups end up going on to have their own descendants, right? That's going to be the biggest divide in the animal kingdom going forward. The biggest one. But at the time of the split, when it first speciates, those species are going to be essentially indistinguishable, even though it's the biggest split in the entire animal kingdom. That's the split between sponges and like everything else. Literally everything else. There is no bigger divide in animals than between sponges and eumetazoa, which includes the jellyfish, the comb jellies, the vertebrates, all the mollusks. Everything on this that isn't a sponge is in that split.
Yeah, this nonsense that we would expect more and more phyla to show up seems really silly, because it's like ignoring what a nested hierarchy is. Because like, if in order for like the base of the tree to split,
you have to go back in time.
We have to go back in time, and like once the base of the tree splits, you no longer have the base.
Right, exactly.
Right? The base of the tree can't split again. We can only have now these branches can split, right? But we would expect the further we go back in time, the fewer splits. And since everything is a nested hierarchy, then our categories start broad and become narrower.
Basically, what this means is that roughly the Cambrian is where speciation just is into phyla. That's just what it results in. Also, Tyler West for $1.99 says, AIG saco de paus, and forgive my pronunciation, because while I do understand it, I'm way better at reading Romance languages that I've never learned to speak than I am trying to pronounce them.
Oh, but also, cheers.
Yes, cheers. Because yeah, I can slog through like Spanish, Catalan, Italian, not too bad at French. Portuguese is iffy, but like ask me to pronounce these things, I'm like, no, I'm not even gonna. It's not gonna happen.
Poleski, I like that comment. That's
He's arguing for the tree to get struck by lightning and split down the middle. Yeah, like for phyla to keep emerging later on after the Cambrian would require time travelers.
Yeah, and I would like to point out here that like I am not a biologist, right?
Mhm.
And he is in theory talking about his field specialization.
He should know.
Right?
He does know better.
He knows better, right? If I can point out something that is wrong with his biology, right,
Mhm.
with his science, that's a major problem because this is not my field. I have not taken a biology class since sophomore year of college.
I mean,
Right?
I think it's the same for me, actually.
Right. So I should not be able to critique any of his science. I should not be able to do that.
Mm-mm.
Um,
Well, that's the thing. Young Earth creationism is usually the kind of thing that a good, solid sophomore undergrad can figure out
Yeah.
why it's wrong if they're in an even remotely related field. Like if you're a
Yeah,
STEM
absolutely.
student and you're a sophomore in your undergrad program, usually you know enough to know why large swaths of Young Earth creationist talking points are just wrong.
Yeah.
Although I do appreciate that we have a Nicophora listed as one of the highlighted what is it? Phyla? Because Onychophora, which is the velvet worms, are absolutely adorable, in case you didn't know. And I mean, they're super soft, which is why they're called velvet worms. Yeah. So anyone who doesn't know what a velvet worm is, you guys should all go Google it. Stay here, but like have in a separate tab or something. Google velvet worms. They're great. Also, they shoot glue at their prey. Yeah, that's how they trap their prey. They shoot glue out of two little glands on their head. Very, very neat.
Is
I wish I
right
had
at
a
the
glue
Cambrian, which
gland.
I know that would be so useful for like arts and crafts.
Right?
Yeah.
is that green little box there. Suddenly, almost all the phyla appear. Just boom, they're there. And as you look through the rest of the rock record, you might only add 3 more phyla or something like that.
Yep.
That's really weird.
Nope.
No.
And here's why. I want you guys to pay attention to the. I'm going to move this over a little bit so you can see it a little better because this set was designed for Raw Matt and Matt Powell, who do not use figures because they can't, because they're, well, too dumb. So we're going to slide this over, and I want you to notice something, right? So the vertical extent that you're seeing, where this branching has big up and down branches, that's just to accommodate the fact that there's a lot of stuff on the right hand side, right? So, you have to have tall little branches. That doesn't actually have any significance in terms of this plot. So as you move to the left, it just splits. Every time it just splits. Nothing changes. What is happening is that humans have declared that some of these splits are just what we're going to call phyla. But the splits themselves aren't special. They're just early. That's literally all that's happening. You cannot have splitting speciation events 600 million years ago and then have that carry forward to today and then say, oh, those are all just essentially the same thing. Those organisms on different sides of those splits are going to end up being extremely different, even though they weren't 600 million years ago. All of this is just misunderstanding not even misunderstanding. I don't think Matt McLean misunderstands this. I think he understands it very well. This is lying about the very basics of how evolution works.
That's not what anybody expected. And if you
No, it's what everyone expected. I'm taking
Everyone
a drink.
expected that.
Everyone expected that. This is basic evolution 101.
And let's remind our audience, who I'm sure knows this, the Cambrian explosion, like, there are certain types of animals, right? Hard things are easier to fossilize than things, right?
Yeah.
So when hard things evolve, right, suddenly we get a lot more fossils.
Right.
So we have to remember when we're talking about fossils, the idea of survivorship bias, right? What can we fossilize, or what will fossilize more easily than something else? That does not mean that at that time there were more of these things than there were more hard things than soft things, right? That means more hard things survive to today. Sorry to simplify that down so much,
Right.
but like,
Well, basically, yeah, at the beginning of the Cambrian, a large number of organisms started making part of their body out of, well, rock.
yeah,
When part of your body is made of rock, it's easier for it to survive in the rocks. So,
Yeah.
you know. Also, BioAlley says, you and I have different definitions of cute. I looked up velvet worms and appreciate their colors, but do not like their overall appearance, and I am mortified that anyone would find onychophorans anything but absolutely adorable. So,
all right, I gotta go look at a velvet worm now.
yeah, you
Continue.
do. Okay.
Look at the yellow is classes, the group just below that. So an example of a class would be reptiles or mammals or trilobites.
Trilobite is that a class? I mean, it might be a class, but like it's also like its own sub. Or was it super class under like the subphylum of Glycerata? Like it's a big group, and it's not closely related to the other chelicerates. In fact, there have even been suggestions that it's actually a stem chelicerate group. Okay, you look
Okay.
like you have something to say.
No, I just saw a picture of a velvet worm, and who wouldn't love this?
I know. BioAlley is just crazy.
Crazy. I'm dropping the image in your Discord just cause.
Okay, fair enough.
It's so cute. It's
Savage
so
Cobra official for $5 says, if according to evolution only nothing can explode, what exploded the Cambrian? That's pretty good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, here we go.
Once again, almost all of our classes that exist ever show up in the Cambrian.
Yeah, later on, because again, after you have the splits that result in phyla, what's the next step down? Class. So now that the phyla have been established by just ordinary speciation, which if you went back at the time, you wouldn't find it to be particularly significant, then the next step is going to be classes. Well, subphyla, then, you know, like superclasses, and then infraclasses and whatever. But yeah.
And let's remember that phyla and class, these are not inherent traits.
Yeah.
These are things humans use to label things.
Yeah, like those lines where we have the blue and the yellow and whatnot, we can move that to either side and it wouldn't make a difference, right?
Yeah. We could make up a whole new classification system that's like backwards from what it is now. You know, it would be complicated and not very useful, but we could do it and it would be just as like grounded in reality as the one we currently use.
Mm-hmm. Also, Don Giovanni says Vindications in Bereshit is a trench coat of Tracy, which is actually fairly amazing because we're incorporating the Hebrew word for Genesis in there.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I that took me a second to get all of that. So cheers.
Yeah.
Also, would you mind if we took a break? Because I hear the baby crying.
I
just wanna
absolutely
go
would
check on
not mind
stuff.
because it is about time to take a break anyway. So guys, we are going to take a quick break. I'm going to refill my glass. While you are waiting, you can enjoy the musical stylings of Bent Hovind because he is the one who gave us our intermission music. So I will see you guys in just a few minutes with a fresh drink with hopefully a much happier baby in the other house. And yeah, we'll be right back. All right, we are back. Thank you for sticking with me, those of you who did, which actually looks to be almost everyone, so thank you very much. I am, however, seeing 82 people watching, but only 68 likes. So, I think we should get on top of that. Also, real quick, before we continue, I want to say I am trying to make sure the channel can be relatively independent, or that's not the right word. Can survive problems with YouTube's monetization and payout schemes, because as I'm sure everyone knows, YouTube has a habit of just getting rid of people's money. Just like, nah, you just demonetized a whole bunch just here, and there's no way to predict it, and it can happen retroactively. And so while right now you guys are doing a great job of helping support the channel, liking, subscribing, all that. The biggest way that I can make sure the channel can keep going, even if YouTube just decides to like hardcore demonetize the whole channel, is the Patreon, because they can't take the Patreon away. Only Patreon can do that, and they tend not to. So if you're interested in supporting the channel and you want to just contribute a little bit, check out the Patreon. It's linked in the description. I get a higher percentage of the Patreon money than I do of the YouTube money, significantly higher portion. And yeah, it's only if you can afford it and only if you want to. Please check that out, because if I can get that to the point where it can support the channel on its own, then I don't have to worry about YouTube demonetizing this my platform and everything. But other than that, we're gonna hit play on this, and we're gonna get some more Matt McClain in. Ready?
Woot.
There's more that get added in the fossil record than phyla, but still the large majority are there present in the Cambrian, and that is really, really unexpected.
Literally the opposite. We'll take another drink for that
the
one.
Opposite. Yeah.
Also, hold up here, because Erechamian has just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. So let's see. One went to Bree. I will take a drink.
One for Bree.
One went to Volis, Supercritical Snake, Michael Murphy, Stacy C. That is the rest of them. So thank you very much. We'll take 4 more drinks. So 2, 3, 4, and 5. Also, Apocalypse Meow said AIG is a cloth-contained collection constituting corn cobs colloquially conveying controversial conceptions. Very nice. Take a drink. Like, my goodness, my audience is just right on it with the alliteration, and I love it.
Y'all are so clever.
I know. I've got the best chat.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really do have the best chat. You guys are amazing. I couldn't come up with these. Are you kidding me?
I love hanging out on your channel. Like, I can't find time to do my YouTube channel right now. You all met why. She's adorable.
She is.
But I love hanging out here because you're super fun. Even though I get really angry at people on screen.
Look,
at
between
the people we're reviewing.
Yes, between alcohol and the chat, it makes it okay.
It's a good Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Also, happy Mardi Gras.
Yeah. Happy Mardi Gras for those of you who are doing the whole incorrect Easter dates instead of the correct Easter dates.
Who has the correct Easter dates? Because I'm like,
obviously the Eastern Christians, like the Oriental Orthodox, the Church of the East, the Armenian Apostolic Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church. Those guys, they have the correct Easter.
Listen,
here's what makes it correct.
What makes it correct?
Easter candy goes on clearance sale before Easter if you follow the Eastern Easter dates. So it's way cheaper.
Yeah, love that.
At least most years. Some years it doesn't, because some years it's actually the same date, but whatever. But that's why it's the correct Easter date.
Wait, what do they use? Because I thought Easter is the first full moon after the equinox.
So there's an additional rule that uses basically the lunisolar calendar that most years pushes it back a number of weeks because it's not allowed to fall before a certain date on the lunisolar calendar.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So
they have an additional after. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, now that I've, for almost no reason, just dunked on the majority of Christians, we'll just keep playing. Oh, and Old Man Joe says, I'm fat every day, not just Tuesday. Nice.
Well, then I wish you mini beads. I think is that the tradition? Like,
Well, so the tradition
it should be.
It's mostly in It's mostly in like Louisiana and like New Orleans specifically.
Yeah.
And the beads are usually given out for public
Well, I'm aware.
public lewdness.
I'm aware of that, but they're also like a thing. I don't know. That feels like a good group.
Okay. I will say, Mardi Gras beads are not a long-standing tradition in like the Catholic Church that goes back like 1,000 years.
I mean, I dare you to go to Louisiana today and say that anywhere. Like,
I mean, I don't care what the Louisianans think. It's just a fact. But anyway, here we go.
So, what is below the Cambrian? Where did these things come from?
The Ediacaran. It's literally right there. In fact, there are actually taxa on there that are above that.
We have a selection bias here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there were many more animals than what we have evidence for. So there's whole species, right, that once existed that went extinct, and we have no record of them.
Exactly.
Well, when you get below the Cambrian, you end up in the Ediacaran. Also
an acceptable pronunciation. Just want to put that out there.
And the Ediacaran, you get these weird things. Here's Dickinsonia. I kind of think of it like a pancake. Probably.
I mean, I wouldn't eat that, but okay.
Live like a pancake.
Is that phrase "sponge embryo" correct? That feels
yes, actually,
like a weird. Okay, so that feels weird, but okay.
Yeah, so sponges. I mean, they mate by broadcast spawning. So each sponge is hermaphroditic. So they both every individual sponge releases both ova and spermatozoa into the water.
Okay.
And this is usually each species usually has like a spawning time. It's usually tied to season as well as moon phase.
Okay.
The moon phase probably has something to do with the tides, although I don't know that for certain.
That would be my guess. It has something to. I could make a wild guess on that, but
yeah. And so these gametes just float off into the water, and then they'll meet in the water ideally, although a large portion of them get eaten by other animals because it's just free food getting cast into the water. But then once fertilization occurs, they do start an embryological development. Now it's extremely simple.
Okay.
They turn into little like gastrula, and then that just kind of develops more or less directly into a sponge, which doesn't even have tissues because that's how basal sponges are. They don't even have tissues. They have differentiated cell types, but they aren't spread into like chunks of tissue. They're just kind of interspersed all over the place.
Okay.
Anyway, here we go.
I don't know. We don't really know what it did. They kind of just.
We have a pretty good idea. So during the Ediacaran, the substrate was bacterial mats, which we don't really have anymore because now we have animals that burrow into the ground and churn this up, which means that you don't get mats of photosynthetic bacteria. But what Dickinsonia was doing, as well as what Kimberella is doing up here that you can see in like the top left of the right-hand picture, kind of crawling across the ground, is basically sifting bacteria out of this bacterial mat and digesting them as its food source. Do we know that with 100% certainty? No, but like it's pretty obvious. We know the substrate was composed of bacterial mats, and we know that it was a ground-feeding thing, and we know it moved.
Yeah.
So like,
it's the most reasonable conclusion given the available data.
Yeah, and it's so likely to be true that talking about the alternatives is not really worth it at this point.
Yeah.
Flopped around, and people aren't really sure what these creatures are.
Well, so we know they're animals, and we know that for a few reasons. One of which is that we have chemical signatures associated with the fossils of chemistry that is unique to animals. But also, it looks like these, as well as some of the other animals, and we can see some other animals here, like we've got Aspergina down below the Dickinsonia on the right. You can't see it over here, but I'll zoom this over a little bit. You can see some Trilobozoans, which is an extinct phylum down here at the bottom right. But Dickinsonia itself is probably a stem bilaterian, which means it's closer to bilaterians, which is the bilaterally symmetrical animals, which also includes echinoderms like starfish, even though they look radially symmetrical. They have bilaterally symmetrical larvae, which is interesting. Yeah, so quick aside, the way echinoderms work is they start out with bilaterally symmetrical larvae, but then as the larvae turn into adults, their left half basically gets eaten by their right half, which comes around and forms a circle.
Oh, that's weird.
It's extremely weird. So anyway, yeah, echinoderms are like the creepiest things. I love them. Anyway, yeah, so a stem bilaterian means that it's closer to bilaterians than it is to any other living group of organisms, which means it's closer than it is to like cnidarians or ctenophores, which is the cnidarians are the jellyfish and related things, and ctenophores are the comb jellies. And that's because, well, if you look at it, it has a glide symmetry. So glide symmetry is like bilateral symmetry, but it's a little different. So it's offset a little bit. It's kind of like, if you look at it, you can see that, well, it has two sides. The sides don't line up perfectly. They're offset just a little bit. And so that's why we think it's a stem bilaterian, because it doesn't have the exact same kind of bilaterian symmetry as actual crown bilaterians do, but it does have some form of it. Also, we have a couple drink triggers coming up here. First of all, Savage Cobra Official says, AIG is a big batch of blimpish bananas brought into the bosom of a broad bag. And we're going to take a drink for that. One of these days, I want to challenge chat to go alphabetically through the entire alphabet and see if they can do it.
Oh, that'd be a good challenge.
Yeah, I mean, there's some letters where it's going to be really tough, like Q or Z, X. But
listen, yeah,
maybe they can do it.
X is hard enough in the improv alphabet game, right?
Oh.
Where, right, every sentence has to start with the alphabet. Yeah, I'm like, I was intentionally like looking up X words there for a while.
Gotta get the Scrabble dictionary
to win. Yeah, to win at improv, which is not.
Also, Savage Cobra Official has gifted 5 memberships. They went to HL Aristosoles, I think. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. Please correct me. Caleb Ray, Dustin Carroll, My Unfinished Journey, and NB Way. So we're going to take 5 drinks, guys. Send in your tetrapod emojis. And here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can do it faster if you don't have to count and hit the button that increases the counter. Anyway, here we go.
They're probably animals, at least
No, they're almost certainly animals.
most of them, but they're unlike anything we see in the rest of the fossil record.
Now, that's interesting because that's not entirely true. So, for instance, you can see Sprigina down at the bottom. Sprigina may well be a stem arthropod. Or, possibly, we can back up and say like maybe it's a stem ecdysozoan. Ecdysozoa is the group that includes arthropods, but also animals like horsehair worms and like snails and whatnot, right? This is the group that has like a thing they shed from the outside of their skin. They have a cuticle that exudes some kind of substance on top of it that is protective, and then they shed it. Anyway, you can see Kimberella up there on the top left. That's probably a stem mollusk, right? So this is probably on its way towards things like clams, limpets, squid, things like that. So you can't see it in here because I think this picture was made before this animal was discovered, but we have other things like Namacalithus, which might be a stem birozoan, or not birozoan, I can't remember the name. It's a superphylum. It's above Birozoa. Well, maybe it is Birozoa. Anyway, it's probably related to things like lamb shells and lophophorates and things like that. So we're talking like lamb shells. They look like clams, but they're not. They're a distinct phylum. The big difference is that clams have left to right shells, like bivalves. Their shells are left to right. Lamb shells have top-bottom shells, which means that the shells aren't actually mirror images of each other like they are in clams. You can tell which shell is the top shell and which one is the bottom shell. Whereas with clams, because their line of symmetry is between the shells, the two shells are mirror images. Lamb shells, the line of symmetry is down the middle of each shell, which means that the two halves of the shells on either side are identical, but the two shells themselves are not. So, interesting thing there. Anyway, yeah, so like, we do have groups of Ediacaran animals that are almost certainly at least stem members of modern groups. And Bede says, nice made up words again, Dappa. Yeah, I know. It's all just made up words.
Clearly.
So we don't have any ancestors for these Cambrian animals.
Aw, if only I hadn't just explained how we do.
Yeah.
Well, what kind of things do we find in the Cambrian?
Okay, so let's see. We've got, I'll slide it over here. So we got Morella splendens over here on the top right, which is one of my favorite Cambrian arthropods. But also we've got some, let's see, we've got some stem onychophorans in the lobophores, or wait, lobopods, sorry, lobopodians. We've got a down towards the middle, so like if you go from the top down 3 and on the left, that's a bivalved arthropod or a bivalved crustacean. We have a trilobite, which is either a chelicerate or a stem chelicerate. I'm not entirely sure. Then down there, we've got Opabinia regalis, which is a stem arthropod, which means it's closer to arthropods than it is to other animals, which makes it, by the way, one of those transitional species. Yeah, exact same kind of thing we're expecting.
That's, by the way, hilarious because those images are from AnswersInGenesis.com.
Oh, they are. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So, look, we found one of your transitional fossils that you.
Right.
We found it. It's on your site. How did it get there?
Yeah, there's actually a couple things that I'm not entirely positive what the actual thing is, because.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this is a great example of evolution in action, where we have stem members of crown groups showing just how stupid the idea of a phylum is. Because if you look at this, all of these, right, are panarthropods. That's a group that includes arthropods, velvet worms, and tardigrades. Everything on here is a stem panarthropod, or sorry, is a panarthropod. But sorry, go ahead.
Dapper, bonus points to our friend Gilaren in the chat for giving us an X-based alliteration.
Yeah. By the way, I believe it's Gillianren. Or Gillian, or Gillian Red. I'm not positive on that. Also, speaking of alliteration, Too Young to Feel This Old for $5 says AIG is a zippered zoo of zany, zealous zucchini. Wow, there you go. So one of the things I want to point out is that at least 3 of the animals depicted as fossils here are not members of modern phyla, but are closely related to 2 different modern phyla. So in the second row down, right? So we have 2.
Yeah, the friends with little leggies.
Yeah.
That kind of looks like a centipede, but it's clearly not a centipede.
Exactly. Those are stem onychophorans. Those are closer to velvet worms than they are to anything else, but they're not actually in Onychophora. And then down at the bottom right, we have Opabinia, which is a stem arthropod. Not actually in Arthropoda, but it's still obviously related. Why would these things exist if the phyla just poof, and now we have phyla, and it's this weird, mysterious thing? We have stem members of these, we have stem phylum groups. You're showing us the exact thing evolution predicts. So, yeah. It's both infuriating and hilarious that he's using these.
Can I make a prediction?
Absolutely.
I predict that at no point in this presentation he will clarify that like the Cambrian explosion is like a selection bias, right?
Yeah, no, that like it's taphonomic selection bias, yeah.
Yeah. That's my prediction. At no point will
technically we can't drink for that until we finish this video.
That's true. So okay, well, I just like he's not going to frame this correctly, right? My prediction is that he is going to continue to frame the Cambrian explosion as, and then suddenly all these animals appeared, right? Okay, so I'm gonna make that prediction, and you know what? If we have to hold off on it, like maybe that's like, if I'm right, maybe that's like a shot at the end of the video.
Okay, but that could be like 1 or 2 months away. So try. Oh, at the end of the video. Okay. Oh wait, no, you mean this one? Yeah, that could be 1 or 2 months away. So you better remember.
I'll remember.
Okay.
Or the chat will hold me accountable.
Yeah, the chat will remember.
The chat remembers.
Yeah.
Just like Pepperidge Farm.
Maybe the chat is Pepperidge Farm.
Chat, do you have cookies?
If you have cookies, why aren't you sending them to me? Oh, right, because I don't have a P.O. box associated with the channel. Nor are they on my Amazon wishlist. Link in the description. All right, here we go.
We find incredibly complex organisms.
That's a subjective thing, man. That doesn't mean anything.
Incredibly diverse
Yeah.
Disparate organisms, things that don't look like each other.
Okay, here's the thing, though. Of these, other than the Lobopodians, which are in the second column, all of those actually look a whole lot like each other. You know why? Because they're all basal arthropods or stem arthropods.
Yeah.
That's why they're all segmented. They all have flappy little appendages. They all have a head with eyes at the front. These are actually extremely similar.
I'm not gonna lie. Row 2, I thought that might have been a fossil. I thought that was the same animal.
Exactly. Yeah, they do look alike.
I had to do row 2 and row 4. I thought those might be the same.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I thought row 1 might have been top and.
You thought it might have been the same organism?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the only one where I was like, ooh, trilobite, and then it doesn't look like a trilobite, right? Like that was the only one, and then you noticed.
Let's take a drink for just like showing us nearly identical animals, and then like they're so different. Okay. Yeah. I love that they're all. He just shows us a bunch of panarthropods, and he's like, "There's no connection, except for all the connections."
Things with legs, things with eyes.
Hey, Opabinia. We'll slide this over a little bit so we can see Opabinia.
Hello, friend.
I'm gonna have to. I don't know if I'm gonna have to make a new set for when we do Matt McLean or something, because this set does not work for Matt McLean as well.
Yeah, you might just need to be able to show like more of his, like all of his screen.
Yeah.
Things with lots of eyes. This is Opabinia.
Yay.
Opabinia has 5 eyes.
Yep.
I don't know why.
Take a drink. That's true.
But it has 5 eyes. And it also has a proboscis with a little grabber on the end.
Mm-hmm.
A claw machine. That's pretty cool. This animal's about that big. It's like 10 centimeters long. That's the fossil, by the way, in the lower right-hand corner.
Yep. Okay. Got anything else for us?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Why are we talking about this?
Good question.
Well, let me explain to you what's going on here. In the Cambrian explosion, you get an abrupt appearance of hard parts, things with shells.
Okay. So
I talked about hard versus soft earlier. Apologize.
So what is a hard part? Basically, it's a mineralized section of an organism, right? So
yeah.
Before you have hard parts, you're not going to get a whole lot of fossilization. But once you do, you're going to get a whole bunch of it. So it's going to have to look like an abrupt appearance of a whole bunch of hard parts. Like there's no other option, right? So this is not something that we can use to really say, oh, there's some kind of weird thing going on.
It's also important that a general audience hears the word abrupt and thinks like all these animals appeared within a few days of each other.
Yeah,
right?
Instead of over
Not
the course of 50
millions of years.
Tens of millions. The Cambrian lasts 50
years.
million years.
So this is geologically abrupt.
Right.
In the Ediacara, nothing has a shell.
That's not entirely accurate. If I remember correctly, Nemicalathus at least has some shell-like structures, although it's not clear that they're fully mineralized like a hard part in like a modern organism. But like, there's something there. Like there's structure there that's being held up rigidly. That's a shell. It might not be a mineralized shell, but it's a shell.
Nothing in the Precambrian has a shell. Suddenly shells are there. Nothing has eyes, let alone complex eyes in the Precambrian. Suddenly in the...
citation needed. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
So in the Cambrian, and by the way, fairly late in the Cambrian, we get things, well, okay, depending on exactly how complex the eye is, right? Like, so complex trilobite eyes don't appear until well into the Cambrian. Other earlier eyes on things like Opabinia appear earlier, but also, this is connected to the hard parts. If you don't have hard parts for your eye, how do you know what the eyes were like? How many fossil human eyes do you think exist, Maddie?
I'm gonna go with 0.
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah, there has never been a fossilized human eye. How many dinosaur eye fossils do you think we have?
Once again, 0.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's 0. Now,
so the only way I could think of being able to preserve an eye for any period of time would have to be like frozen or like amber.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? It would have to be something where it doesn't actually form a fossil, right? That like mineralization process.
Right.
It would have to be like somehow encased in a solid thing that preserves it.
All right. Now, do you know why we have fossilized trilobite eyes?
Is because it's hard?
Yeah, in fact, it's actually made of rock. Trilobite eye lenses are literally made of organic rock.
That is super cool.
They're made of calcite. You know what calcite tends not to do is rot.
Yeah.
Also, Steve Reno says AIG is a quiescent quilted queue of quivering quills, and I'm going to take a drink because my God, you did it with cues.
Well done, sir. Well done, Steve Reno.
So let's say that Dickinsonia had eyes. How would we know?
Yeah.
We wouldn't. There'd be no way to know.
We like assume dinosaurs have eyes because they got holes where they're
right. Orbits are a pretty good indication of eyeballs.
Orbits are a pretty good indication of eyeballs. But yeah, like if your orbits were made of something soft, or like you just had like a cluster of photosensitive cells, right? That's
like modern flatworms.
Like modern flatworms. Like how would that preserve?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we don't know what the eyes were like before the Cambrian because they didn't preserve.
Yeah.
Cambrian, you have all kinds of different types of eyes. Nothing in the Precambrian has incredibly complex body plans, but in the Cambrian...
I mean, you showed a Sprigina, which has a cephalic region and then a segmented posterior and possibly limbs under that. We don't know. I mean, that sounds complicated. You had Trilobizoans, which had like this rotational 3-part symmetry. You showed things like Charnia, which have complex fractal body plans. That's all complicated. I'm just taking a drink for like, we're just going to arbitrarily say that these body plans are complex and these other ones aren't.
We have tons of different body plans that suddenly show up.
Also, what a body plan is arbitrary, right? So
yeah.
The phyla are sometimes called like the organisms with different quote unquote body plans, right? But you can just, and we'll take panarthropods because it's a great example because there's multiple living members. So it's a great example to use. Okay, so what's the body plan of arthropods? Well, if I say segmented, which with a pair of appendages for each segment, and then repeated organs, including a gut that goes through the segments, as well as paired nephridia per segment, well, guess what? That describes arthropods, but it also describes tardigrades, and it also describes onychophorans, the velvet worms. So does that mean they have the same body plan? Well, I don't know. I mean, they are in different phyla. So, for instance, arthropods are characterized by tagmatization and cephalization in a way that, say, tardigrades and onychophorans aren't. They have no tagmatization, and they have a lesser amount of cephalization. Does that make them have a different body plan? I don't know. And you know why? Because it's arbitrary.
Doesn't define body plan?
Not only that, you can't define it. It's completely arbitrary. Yeah. You can say that humans have a different body plan from dogs. I mean, dogs aren't bipedal. They walk on their toes, not their heels. That's a different body plan.
By the way, we've got a sweet boy. Oh, Chester, did you us?
Is he being shy? Oh, hi, Chester.
He's being shy.
Oh, look at that good boy.
He's so good.
Apocalypse Meow for $1.99.
That dogs and humans have the same body plan because we have a head,
4 limbs,
symmetric about the midline.
Yep, 4 limbs, 2 lungs, 1 heart, symmetric. Yeah. Also, Apocalypse Meow for $1.99 says your body plan's a wonderland. Very nice. All right, here we go.
And we have complex appendages. Here's one of my favorites. This is Anomalocaris. That's a fossil of it. This is what the animal would look like. By the way, this thing could get up to about 1 meter long. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Pretty
terrifying creature. But
Savage Cobra Official says, is this Matt a young Earth creationist or an ID type? As far as I know, he's a young Earth creationist. He's not super going into the young Earth part. He's basically kind of spotting the age of the Earth for this conversation, which is fine. Not everyone has to defend all of their positions in every conversation. Arachamian for $10 says, anecdotally, AIG are abhorrent attaches of anemic androgen-associated appendages. Very nice.
So, I need you guys to know something about my sweet, sweet boy Chester, I'm petting him.
You cut out a little bit.
Oh, I was gonna tell the wonderful audience about my sweet dog.
You keep cutting out, Maddie. You cut out at the important part.
My sweet doggo Chester?
Yes?
Okay. You all, beautiful humans in chat, have seen more of him than any actual visitors to my home because he is nervous boy and runs and hides in his designated corner.
Aw, what a sweet guy.
So he's very sweet. Also, there's a comment that says probably better than explaining the missing rabbits. My grandfather was like a lab tech at a small rural hospital before, like, in the time when pregnancy tests involved injecting urine into rabbits and then cutting them open.
Yep.
My grandfather didn't want to kill the rabbits.
Oh.
So he made a little rabbit ether mask and did rabbit surgery. And because you just have to look at like the ovaries and that tells you if the person's pregnant. And so he would cut them open and do the test and then sew them back up. And then they lived on a farm. And so for the longest time, they just had a full herd of sterile white rabbits in the yard.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Is it bad that I kind of now want some rabbits too?
No.
Okay, fair enough. All right, here we go. You know what? I appreciate the no-kill rabbit pregnancy test story.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
It had these weird grabber things on the front, and it had a mouth that looked like a big circle, and it had eye stalks, and it was an incredibly interesting, beautiful creature.
And also, it's a stem arthropod. Again, one of those things that you wouldn't expect if the phylogist are poofing ex nihilo at the Cambrian with nothing, no evolutionary antecedents and no evolutionary relatives. Weird that. It's weird how he's highlighting animals that show how closely the Cambrian corresponds to the predictions of evolutionary biology.
I have a theory as to why he's doing that, though.
Okay.
I think he's trying to show that old animals look like modern animals.
Interesting. Like they're already super complicated.
Already super complicated and already look. That's practically a shrimp, right?
Even though it definitely isn't.
Right, it's definitely not. But like, if we don't show the really, really, really weird ones, right? Like if we show the ones that are closest to things, then like the message we're sending, they haven't changed that much.
That could be. Let's see what else he has about Anomalocaris. This one being Anomalocaris canadensis, which is the strange shrimp. Strange shrimp from Canada is what that name means. Because in case you don't know, the Burgess Shale is in Canada. So there you go.
And nothing like it is found in the layers below.
Well, I mean, we have stem arthropods in layers below, so no. Or at least we have likely stem arthropods.
Yeah.
So how does the naturalistic evolutionist explanation deal with this, right?
Deal with what, dude? Okay, you have not presented a problem. You presented things that are completely in line with the predictions of evolutionary biology, and then been like, uh-oh, big problem over here. No, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's really, really not.
Because what you expect to see at the bottom of the fossil record is a tree.
No, not of the fossil record.
Right.
Because the fossil record is inherently biased.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the fossil record is a tool, but certainly not the only one. And in modern times, not the best one.
Yeah.
Caveat for, like, what you're trying to study. But, like,
If what you're trying to study is just evolutionary biology, then the fossil record is like icing on the cake of morphology and genetics and phylogenetics and all that.
But the Cambrian explosion is like if we just took off the whole bottom of the tree.
You mean the bottom of the tree that's the part that doesn't fossilize well? Yeah, it is kind of like that. We're going to take a drink for that part. And even though you actually had to take that box and then move it down a little bit to before the Cambrian, because again, we do actually have Ediacaran stem members of modern groups, which means you can see the evolutionary tree before the Cambrian.
And suddenly all we had left were branches. That's what we see in the Cambrian. And then in the evolutionary model, we try and hypothesize about what those ancestors would be.
And also, look at some of the representative members of those groups in the Ediacaran that, again, do exist.
Yeah. Well, and if by so like it is no scientist's job, right? And I can say this confidently, not being a member of this. It is absolutely no scientist's job to try to come up with like, ooh, I'm going to sit here and make up animals today. Right?
That's true. That's not a job in science as far as I can tell.
Yeah, that is no one's job. Which is what he's making it sound like people do. Right? Now maybe it's like, oh hey, we see this derived trait, right? So like eyes, right? But hey, there's other animals today that don't have eyes but do have photosensitive cells, right? So we might suppose that the ancestor of this creature, who we have a fossil of, right, had more basal eyes that were photosensitive cells, right? Like, you know what I mean? You could maybe come up with some traits that they would have based off of evidence, right? You could make arguments for that, but that's not the same as like sitting around and like drawing pictures of animals,
Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, we are only $16.03 away from triggering yet another feather video.
Ooh, I love feather videos.
I know, right?
But there aren't fossils for those things.
Except when there are.
There's nothing there. I mean, there's things there, but they're not the things you're
false.
looking for.
Yeah, we'll take a drink for that.
So how do evolutionists deal with this lack of fossil ancestors?
Okay.
He says there's nothing there, and then he corrects himself and says, well, there's nothing there. So there is something there, but it's not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Like, that's a citation needed. That's a what do you mean?
We'll play the citation needed clip for that.
Yes, please.
There it is. Thank you, citation needed.
Thank you, citation needed.
I'm still really stoked that that's like the second most popular citation needed GIF on like Discord or something. Like that's great.
So Dapper, this past month, I've been in a local. So I do a lot of stuff with the local improv theater here in Oklahoma City.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a 3-show run of a like sketch comedy review show. And so I was in a couple sketches with it. And so I've been deep in the like 5 minutes. Thank you, 5. Right. So when you said citation needed, I just thank you, citation needed. Very kid and energy.
Nice.
And I was never a theater kid, but a lot of the folks with the improv theater were theater kids. And I like them a lot. They're lovely kids.
By the way, Royland Hutchins for $2 says feathers. And yes, I do want to point out, I do mean feeders, because of course, it's correctly pronounced feeder. Did you see my debate with Otangelo Grasso?
No, how recent was this?
It's going to be over a year ago by now.
Oh, okay. Then I might have seen that one.
So
I thought you might have been mentioning something.
It was basically on Our Birds, Dinosaurs, and he spent basically his entire opening talking about feeders, and no one had any clue what he was talking about until like 2/3 through, and then we realized, oh, he's saying feather. Like we did not understand at all what he was talking about. And I'm just like, what is he even talking about? And he gets like a diagram of feathers, and I'm like, oh. So that's where that meme comes from.
Yeah, okay. I would like to, I mean, I know English isn't that's something to like
Yeah, it's not his first language.
be kind about, but that's still very silly.
So here's the thing. He can say the sound because he says it in other places.
Okay.
So he could say fetters, which would be at least closer. Now, the sound is an extremely hard sound to pronounce for most people who aren't native English speakers, and I get that.
Okay.
But, like, he could try. He could get fetters, which would be a lot easier.
Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're not wrong. Sorry, I was gonna keep trying to like be defensive and play devil's advocate, but I don't need to do that for Otangelo. I don't.
Again, we don't need to defend Otangelo now.
We don't.
No. He's the only person who went from moderator to banned in this channel in the course of one stream.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, he was given moderator status so that he could, during the debate, post links to his sources. And
Cool.
when you do that, I'm not going to just take it away. Because, you know. But yeah, he then started spamming chat with links to his blog, which is just a pile of nonsense. Then I demodded him so he couldn't do that anymore. And then he started getting pissy, so I banned him.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, some argue that the evolution of this event was so abrupt, no fossils are left behind.
No.
Who argues that?
That's,
Citation needed.
Yeah, we'll do another citation needed. We're going to take a drink. Here's the thing. It's not that it's abrupt. It's that before that, you don't have any significant amount of mineralized parts, so you don't get as many fossils.
Other people say, well, the ancestors were soft-bodied, so they wouldn't have left fossils behind. Only things with hard parts leave fossils.
Yeah.
It's not only things.
Not only, but it's easier. It's that selection bias.
Right. So, like, even when he's almost getting it right, we're like, oh, we got to straw man it a little bit. No, like, just stop.
Yeah.
That's why I took another drink.
Okay.
I'm actually running out of this drink. I better cool it.
Well, that statement has some issues.
Oh.
Because every fossil we have in the Precambrian is soft-bodied.
Yeah, it's almost like no one's saying that nothing with a soft body can ever leave a fossil under any conditions, because that's stupid and everyone knows it is. But it's also like it's still true that things with hard bodies are more likely to leave fossils. Weird, isn't it?
And we have tons of them. They're finding new Precambrian.
No, we don't have tons of them.
Not so like define tons, because number of Precambrian fossils, like especially like unique species, as compared to fossils in that Precambrian explosion, right? That's the ratio we care about here, team.
Mm-hmm. Also, so I believe it was Border BBQ said only 43 drinks. I mean, feel free to send things that will cause more drinks.
I will say I have a really great drinking game for original Star Trek.
Oh.
And that will get me messed up in like 3 episodes. I have not played that game in a long time.
You should send me the rules for that, because I am interested, because I love me some original Star Trek.
Okay, the rule that will get you messed up though.
Okay.
Is okay, the first time I played this was the rule we set. So anytime the camera goes from a shot that is like one person's face, right? And then another one person's face to another one person's face.
So it has to go back
another.
It has to go back 4 times?
It can go back and forth, right? But we have to go these like just the shot is just the face.
Okay.
Right? We have to have 4 unique ones of those in a row.
Wow. Okay.
Right? And then you drink. And the first time we made that rule, we then did, and then you have to have another drink for every. It's like it has to be consecutive shots, right? Where it's just face, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we got up to like 1 unbroken was like 16 drinks.
Oh my goodness.
Right, because it's just face, 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 face. So if you do that as every 4 in a row is a drink, then it's much less damaging to your liver.
Okay, I might have to do that then.
Yeah, that's a good one. And then it's things like anytime they pan to a like panel of lights that's supposed to mean something.
Okay.
Spock looking in his viewer thing, Kirk getting the girl, Kirk not getting the girl is like do a shot. Anyway, I'll send you the rules.
Send me the link.
We can chat about we can do a Star Trek stream at some time.
We probably can't though, because we get in all sorts of trouble.
Do you mean like copyright wise, or
Yeah.
we would argue about Star Trek?
No, copyright wise.
I have ideas to get around that. It doesn't have to be like a.
Oh, okay.
We could just do a let's chat about Star Trek stream.
Yeah, we could do that. All right,
and
but
do,
anyway,
like,
we got to forge forward.
Okay, fine.
Cambrian fossils all the time. They all have soft bodies, and none of them look like anything in the Cambrian.
First part, yes. Second part, no.
Yeah.
So that's not a good solution to that problem.
Actually, it's a really good solution.
Now, if the Cambrian explosion were just a one-off thing, right? If this were just like the weird fluke in the fossil record,
then that would be extremely unusual and hard to explain, because that's not what's predicted by evolution. Because evolution predicts that any time that a new group of niches open up, that you have an adaptive radiation. Now, that could be because a new environment is now open to life, or it could be because of a mass extinction, anything like that. That's what adaptive radiations are. The Cambrian is just the first major adaptive radiation of eumetazoan animals. That's it. That's all it is. That's the whole thing. It's the first adaptive radiation. It's the first major adaptive radiation of eumetazoan animals.
Maybe you could give them some grace and say, okay, well, this is a weird spot, but everything else will fit.
It's not a weird spot. No.
And also, like, Cambrian explosion turns out like fully in line with evolutionary theory. Like, fully in line.
Well, let's see. Let's make our way up in the Paleozoic to the Carboniferous.
Oh, good.
In the Carboniferous, we have something called Roemer's Gap. This is a 14 million year gap in the lower Carboniferous where there are almost no tetrapods.
Okay, we're going to take a drink because, hey, guess what, guys? Roemer's Gap is closing as we speak.
Okay, cool.
Yep, turns out Roemer's Gap is continually being filled in as we now explore more and more areas. One of the problems with Roemer's Gap is the places that you have to go to fill it in are really inhospitable, which is one of the reasons. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a very basic question here.
Go ahead.
Is the insinuation here that we see lots of tetrapods in the fossil record, and then for 14 million years we don't, and then we see them again?
Well, first, before that, they're probably more stem tetrapods than actual tetrapods, but basically, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that gap is being filled in, and that's like it's a known reason why we don't see these. And the known reason is that excuse me while I fully exaggerate, but like the only place to find like fossils that's like where continental crust was at the time those guys were alive is like currently in the middle of the ocean. That wouldn't make sense. But like currently,
so it's in a lot of places. In Antarctica. It's a lot of places like there's places in Antarctica or northern Canada, and I mean all of Canada is already a frozen wasteland that's unfit for human habitation. So you go into northern Canada, and I mean you might as well be on Mars.
Okay, so we've got like permafrost, like ice, and then some rock.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, like a lot of places like that. Now, in one of the few good things about global warming, it is opening up larger amounts of the globe to fossil exploration. So, yay!
Okay.
There's a silver lining to just about everything, including global warming. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything about it.
Do you know what fully dawned on me the other day, Dapper?
I don't.
About global warming and about climate change. When we say the phrase that global average temperature increased by like 1 degree Celsius and is projected to increase by like 4, it occurred to me that most people are going to think that what that means is, or an equivalent thing would be like, okay, the average daily temperature, or even like from where I live every day is going to increase by 1 to 4 degrees, right?
Which doesn't sound that bad.
And I'm like, which doesn't sound that bad. And I'm like, oh no, that's not what we mean at all.
No, it is not.
No. And I feel like that's a full, I hit one of my moments of like, oh no, I've been in academia too much and like assumed assumed the general population thinks about this really specific topic that I think.
Yeah, no, they don't.
And they do not.
Mm-mm.
And that is a communication failure on the field.
Yep.
That is not the wrong scientific term, but certainly is the wrong colloquial term to use to communicate what we're talking about.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a good way to summarize what's happening in terms of temperature, but like, how do you fix it for everyone else? I don't know. I don't have a good answer. Also, for $10, Arachamian says a colloidal silver lining will cause argyria, and I don't know what's going on with that one. Sorry.
I think that's an AIG.
I don't know.
Because I think the bag is the colloidal silver lining.
But colloidal silver is an emulsion of silver in like a liquid.
Okay, but colloidal silver, isn't that like also like a woo-woo term thing?
Well, I mean it is, and it does turn your skin blue. So there is that.
Blue. Okay.
Anyway, we're gonna hit play.
Okay.
Four-legged animal.
Oh, and we're about $4 or $4.03 away.
Fossils at all. So you can see, and you're in the Devonian, you got a few tetrapods, and then there's this gap where you find almost nothing at all. And what's on top of the gap? Tons of different animals. Drastically different body plans of amphibians.
Yeah. I mean, back when Romer's Gap wasn't really being filled, that would be true. But one of the problems with making your argument on the basis of what isn't in the fossil record is that that's the kind of thing that changes, and it can change very rapidly. Like, as I said, Romer's Gap is being filled in. I'm pretty sure, at this rate, it probably won't be much more than a decade until we say there used to be a thing called Romer's Gap. And there just isn't anymore.
Say it with me again. Like, the biggest problem with like making an argument solely on the fossil record is always going to be selection bias, right?
Mm-hmm. Or preservation bias.
Preservation bias. Sorry, that is better. Preservation bias.
Yeah.
In my field, where the state of the atmosphere is not in fact preserved, I would say selection bias.
Right.
But yes, for paleontology, preservation bias is a much better term.
All right, here we go.
Let me explain kind of the setup here. Okay? When you are in the Devonian, this is when tetrapods are thought to first evolve from fish.
You know what? Here's the thing. We only got 5 minutes left. I think that the evolution of tetrapods from Devonian fish is probably something that should be left for next time, because I don't want to get into that whole big topic with 5 minutes left. Also, for $4, Steve Reno says plushy when, which leaves us only $3 cents away.
3 cents?
3 cents. Yep.
Oh my goodness.
So, guys, first, Maddie, do you have anything that you want to plug?
We have a game tomorrow night, don't we?
It's not on air. Oh wait, no, it
okay.
is. Wait, is it? Hold on. First, I have to read. Steve Reno says, "Pleasure Tunica plushie when." So here's the thing with plushies, right? I have to custom order plushies in bulk, which means I'm not likely to do it until I can have a really good idea that it's going to be able to turn a profit for me, right? Because there's not a place that's just going to make custom plushies. So if I wanted to make a custom plushie, which is a thing that I'm open to, I would need to have a large enough audience that I could be reasonably well assured of turning a profit on them, which would probably mean I would need a few tens of thousands of subscribers, and frequently on this, like for live chat, things like a few hundred viewers. Because otherwise, I'm just going to lose money on it. And I can't afford to just buy like 500 plushies and then take a drink on that. But
you set an appropriate goal for your channel, right? And maybe you could convince me to hand sew some.
Oh. Well, we'll talk about that off air then.
Yeah.
Now, as far as tomorrow goes, is that Power Rangers? Yeah, that is Power Rangers Jungle Beasts.
Yeah, that's Power Rangers.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So tomorrow is Power Rangers Jungle Beasts. And that will be on Top Hats Off. So come see Maddie play Claire, the Blue Ranger, who is
I love Claire.
She
Wearing
is
her
great.
fanny pack.
Also,
She's a delight.
Olivia Williams for $6.99 Beaverbuck says, "Here you go for reaching the goal. Godzilla. We'll take a drink for Godzilla."
Cheers.
And then Royland Hutchins for $2 says, "Makeshift plushies." Look, I would like to have plushies for the channel, but like I said, we're not quite there yet. We got a little ways to go. Which does in fact put us over the amount for feathers in the next video. Now, okay, it's not technically going to be the next video I make, because the next video I make, I have promised to use fan art from someone who sent me fan art. The next one is going to be fan art, but the one after that will be feathers, because I'm not going to go back on my promise to use the fan art.
Okay.
So.
Oh, but I was going to say, so right now, most of my streaming stuff is TTRPG related.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see me as a player in the Power Rangers Top Hats Off every other Wednesday. And right now, over on Amateurish Productions, Twitch and YouTube, I'm doing a like solo Call of Cthulhu once a month stream. And I got some stuff working behind the productions for a Pathfinder mini campaign. So that'll be really exciting. And I'll let you guys, I know that's not super the vibe of this channel, but like, welcome to what I need to do to like relax with baby. And
we're on the plug your stuff part. I don't care what the theme is.
Cool. The goal is to finish my dissertation this year. So like, I'm doing a lot of science for my job.
Nice.
And so science in my free time is a little harder right now.
Yeah.
But anywho.
All right.
That's all I got. Yeah.
Well, up on this channel, let's take a look. So, on Thursday, we've got the next part of the series where basically two frauds? Frauds-ish? Fraud adjacent, at least. Creationists point out, hey, these animals are cool, therefore no evolution, which is a really dumb argument, but it gives me an excuse to talk about really cool animals. That'll be on the 23rd at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. It'll be a premiere. On Saturday at, I believe, 4:30 Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, we're going to be talking, myself and Jackson Wheat will be talking on this channel to a young Earth creationist named Jeremy Spry. That is already scheduled. I don't know where he's going to take it, because already in our Discord chat that the three of us are in, he's already gone origins or bust, like straight to abiogenesis. To which I'm like, okay, so do you think that like all eukaryotes share common ancestry? Because if your problem is abiogenesis, then you're not a young Earth creationist, right? You're like an old Earth, like mostly a theistic creationist, or theistic evolutionist who's like, yeah, but like abiogenesis needed God. Which is not the position I know he takes. It's the weird retreat that creationists go to when they know that they don't have anything, which I don't allow. Anyway, so that's going to be on Saturday. On Tuesday, the 28th, I'm hoping to once again have Jackson Wheat on the channel for Jackson with Jackson. Then on the 4th, I have no idea. Maybe we'll do another Dapper Reacts. We still have to finish up that Catholic Creationist video. Then on the 7th will be Kent with Bent, where Bent will be wearing a tutu, because in the last Kent with Bent, they met his fundraising goal for a tutu. So he will be putting a tutu around his neck. If he puts it around his waist, you can't see it. So there you go. That's what's coming up on this channel. Everybody, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your participation. Like I said, I have one of the best chats in the entirety of the internet. I love listening to, reading your guys' interaction. You guys have great points. You're usually very funny, so I really appreciate it. Maddie, I hope that you have a great rest of your week, and that this was a nice little excuse for you to kick back and relax a little bit, have a couple drinks. Everyone, I hope that I will see you on Thursday. Here are the end credits. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Bent Hovend, Tapioca Weasel, Danny5252, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, San, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, Elleran Teller, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, and Pat L. Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if the annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.